Today, President Biden announcing his new plan to deal with the virus. 2/3 of American workers could be mandated to get the COVID vaccine or undergo weekly tests. Inflation is heating up around the world. Now the European Central Bank says it's going to start tightening its monetary policy. And Amazon, upping its game to attract and keep employees, is now offering to pay college tuition. What do workers have to do to qualify? That and much more coming up at NTD Business. Good evening. Great to have you with us. I'm Paul Graney. In news just in, the Biden administration could be about to mandate that 2/3 of all U.S. employees, or about 100 million workers, either get vaccinated or get regularly tested. It's part of a plan President Biden is expected to announce later today. The Department of Labor is developing a rule to require all employers with 100 or more employees to ensure their workforce is fully vaccinated or tested weekly. Biden will also require all federal employees to get the shots, with the White House press secretary saying there will be limited exceptions, such as for disability or religious objections. Biden's plan also includes requiring vaccinations for healthcare workers and recommending that large entertainment venues require vaccine proof or testing for entry. And inflation continues to run hot all around the world. And while prices in Europe rise at the fastest pace on record, the European Central Bank has agreed to moderately reduce its bond buying program designed to stimulate the economy. ECB has been buying government and corporate bonds to keep interest rates low and ensure there's ample money in the system. This is highly inflationary. The central bank seems to think it's done the trick with the economy.
The rebound phase in the recovery of the euro area economy is increasingly advanced. Output is expected to exceed its pre-pandemic level by the end of this year. With more than 70% of European adults fully vaccinated, the economy has largely reopened, allowing consumers to spend more and companies to increase production.
The central bank will still keep its target interbank interest rate at rock-bottom levels, but it will reduce its asset purchases somewhat. Because it's so willing to buy the bonds of Eurozone countries, the governments in those countries have been able to borrow at historically low rates. The top money manager in Spain tells us nobody but the European Central Bank is willing to finance those governments at such low rates. Governments then spend the new money into the economy, further stoking inflation. So joining us to discuss the ECB's move today, we have Harry Vereiser, an adjunct professor of economics at the University of Detroit Mercy, and an author of It Didn't Have to Be This Way, Why Boom and Bust is Unnecessary, and how the Austrian School of Economics breaks this cycle. Professor Vereiser, pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on. Do you feel that this is the main reason why they want to keep interest rates so low, is to make sure governments can continue to finance themselves?
Absolutely. Because remember, the ECB is a government operation. So what government cares about is government. And the rest of the things that come out, well, that'll come out in 10 years. But they're looking to protect themselves.
So do you think they will raise interest? When will they be able to afford to raise interest rates given the levels of government debt?
Well, the levels of debt are horrendous compared to what it was in 1978 when they started this kind of thing. Or actually, it was 71. I lived through that. I have to tell you, in 1971, I called a press conference, and I predicted that when we went on pure fiat currencies, that we would have problems with inflation. And we've had, in the United States, 500% to 600% inflation. And what that does is the people at the top, well, they're fine because they get the money first. But the poor folks at the lower income, and the lower you are on the income scale, the more inflation damages you.
So we see this inflation, you would say, causes wealth inequality, artificial wealth inequality?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is one of the main drivers because of the fact that remember, it's all how much money is coming in and how much you're spending on things. Well, you take a look at what the lower income people are spending on, or the regular food and cars and gasoline rent, etc. Well, their prices are going up far faster than they're able to buy. And so in the United States, in 1971, wages were 60% of the national income, right? Today it's 50%. So that's a 20% haircut that the average working person has gotten. And we have the
listening to Jerome Powell, and perhaps I'm not sure about in Europe as well, but they seem to be putting this down to supply chain challenges, shipping challenges. They don't really see that the creation of money is behind this.
Well, they don't dare say that, because that all of a sudden people say, hey, you're the guys responsible. And any inflationary thing, they always say it's somebody else's fault. They're just passing the buck. But you take a look at the long-term effects. As an economist, I have to take a look at the long-term effects. The long-term effects are the inflation is falling on the people who can least afford it. And the governments are doing very well, thank you, because they just print the money. And money now has no meaning. I mean, you work hard for your money and they print it up in the basement.
Professor Harry Vereiser. And price inflation at Chinese factories hit a 13-year high in August, driven by high prices for raw materials. And despite Beijing's attempt to cool costs, pressure is mounting on Chinese manufacturers that could soon be felt by consumers in the United States and around the world. The producer price index rose almost 10% from a year earlier. That's the fastest pace since 2008. Commodity prices have been rising in recent months. That's hurting the bottom lines of many mid and downstream factories in China. They'll likely have to pass on those costs if they haven't already. China's coal prices hit a record high this week over supply concerns. Major coal regions started fresh rounds of safety checks. Prices are up 57% from a year earlier. Earnings at China's industrial firms has now slowed for 5 straight months. And expensive copper is pushing some air conditioner makers to replace it with cheaper materials like aluminum. Copper is a critical material in air conditioners, but its price has risen over 40% in the past year, and that's pressuring manufacturers. Bloomberg's reporting that one Japanese company, a top AC maker, is planning to replace half of the copper with aluminum. It's not quite as effective. China's home appliance makers are also working on more aluminum in their products. Aluminum itself is also much more expensive than a year ago, over 60% more expensive, but it's still much cheaper than copper. It hit a record high in May and remained elevated since then. But there is some positive news on the employment front. The number of first-time claims for jobless benefits dropping to a new pandemic-era low last week. Labor Department saying 310,000 workers filed for unemployment last week. That's the lowest weekly number since March of last year. Although another report last week showed American employers adding far fewer jobs than expected last month, the economy is still down around 5 million jobs compared to before the pandemic. So with the unemployment situation in America slowly improving, today we look at an alternative to finding a job. You can always start your own business. We have two entrepreneurs who did exactly that during the pandemic. Not an easy time to do it. We have Michelle Mack, the creator of the Mule Baby Whiteboard, now selling on Amazon. And we have Lizette Rivera, founder of Roasted Whisk. It is coffee-inspired gift boxes and treats for you and even your dog as well. Lizette, why don't you give us some introduction to your product and what inspired you to make it?
It's so our product is gift box and it's coffee infused. I took my love of coffee during the pandemic with my daughter, who was a 2020 graduate. As most people know, COVID kind of destroyed most kids' senior year, and we were looking for something to do inside, and that led to us baking and thinking of different ways we can get people, introduce people to coffee. We're a Hispanic family, and Cuban coffee is in our culture, it's in our blood, and that's how we created Roasted Whisk. Everything that we do in that box is coffee inspired. Our baked goods, our cookies, even the snickerdoodle, which is like everybody's love, is infused with espresso.
Can you take us through the process of idea to bringing it all together that you could finally sell it?
Oh, yeah, that was a lot of fun. So we were here baking, and my mom, unfortunately, has dementia. So our house was a safe house for COVID, and she would come over. It was very difficult with somebody with dementia to try to get them out of the house. And she would just eat these cookies. And she said, "Oh, will you put some in a box for me? I want to give them to my neighbors." She lives in a 55 and up community. And I said, "Okay." And that's what she started doing. She was giving them to people. And we were giving our products to neighbors who really couldn't do a whole lot. It kind of brought our community together. And then my mom's like, "Oh, you should sell this. You love coffee so much. Why don't you have your own coffee?" And that's kind of what brought those two worlds together. And just really, coffee and tea, for me, brings people together through conversation. And that's what we wanted during COVID, is just, to make people smile.
Awesome. Michelle, I'm sure there are lots of anxious parents anxiously waiting to hear how their mule baby whiteboard can help. You want to run us through it?
Yeah, I was actually let go early on in the pandemic and became a new mom. My baby was 6 months old at the time. And really, because of COVID, I had to ask my mom to really come in and help me as I was interviewing and searching for jobs. We needed an easy, fast solution to really coordinate baby care between my mother, me, and my husband. So the challenges are my mom's not tech savvy. My husband, my mom speaks different languages. So again, just really looking at what solutions were out there, I didn't really like anything. So as I was interviewing, I was drawing out this board, and it gave me this idea that if it wasn't there in the market and it was helping me and my family a lot, that I wanted to make it so that's easy for everybody at home to help out.
How's business been so far?
It's been great. It's very steady. I actually launched a twin board which is doing really, really well right now. It's really keeping pace with my bestseller, which is the baby meal board. Now I have the baby twin board as well.
Lizette, what would you say to people who are listening? They think it sounds great, it sounds inspirational, but they're not sure. How difficult was it for you to pull everything together, maybe from a finance perspective or a confidence perspective, and actually make it work?
For me, going from, an insurance industry background to running an e-commerce site was night and day, very difficult. So I reached out, actually I got a mentor, and I encourage others to try to find somebody who will mentor you in that industry. Your local chambers are a really good source. And I found somebody that, knew a lot about the e-commerce business, because that's really how I wanted to launch the boxes. And, finances were really hard during COVID. I did dip into my savings, but again, that mentor person led me to a couple of scholarships through my local chamber, and that also helped me. And just, if it's your dream, go for it. I would say just go for it. It is very scary, but there's nothing like following your gut and just doing it.
Anything to add, Michelle?
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot of resources out there. What really helped me was looking at a lot of YouTube, which is obviously free, and then obviously tapping into your network, because you never know who can help. So I think just getting out of your comfort zone, talking about what you're doing, even though you don't deem it as success, I think every single person that you talk to can really give you either feedback or other ideas, or even just being a soundboard when it's kind of lonely being by yourself. So I think that the more you talk about it with other people and share your idea, you'll get that support and that motivation that you need to continue.
Awesome advice. Michelle, Lizette, thank you both so much. And Amazon has a new perk to attract and retain hourly employees. The tech giant's offering to pay tuition, fees, even books for U.S. workers who want to earn a bachelor's degree. Most of Amazon's 750,000 warehouse, transportation, and other hourly employees can get it, but you need to be at the company for 90 days to qualify and be willing to continue working part-time or full-time while taking the classes. Workers at Amazon-owned Whole Foods, though, aren't eligible for the new program. And Facebook has just launched its first smart glasses today. You can listen to music, answer calls, even take photos and short videos. It teamed up with the maker of Ray-Ban to make the glasses. They started around $300 each. Other tech firms have tried to crack this space already, but early products like Google Glass proved difficult to sell to consumers due to prices and design. Facebook has recently been criticized over its handling of user data, but it said today it would not access the media used by its smart glasses without customers' consent. On Wall Street ending lower today, the Dow falling 152 points, or 0.4%. S&P 500 lost 21 points, about 0.5%, and the Nasdaq dropping 38 points, about 0.25% today. But athletic clothing company Lululemon saw its shares up over 10%. It posted better than expected quarterly results. Its annual profit forecast also beat estimates. Demand for athletic wear likely remaining strong. Sportswear makers have seen strong demand during the pandemic as people worked out at home. Lululemon and other athletic wear makers like Nike and Under Armour all benefiting. But apparel makers are now facing supply chain hiccups due to new lockdowns in Vietnam. They rely heavily on the country for manufacturing. Lululemon says it's working on shifting production out of the country wherever possible, but didn't say whether that's going to add to its costs. And Gamestop, your favorite meme stock, is still reporting a loss for the second quarter, but a smaller one, while its net sales are still floating just above $1 billion. The investor earnings call today was only 7 minutes long, with no questions taken and no guidance provided either. NTD's Don Ma reports.
Gamestop reported second quarter 2021 earnings Wednesday after market, posting a substantial 26% year-over-year growth in sales and a 7.8% quarter-over-quarter reduction in net losses. CEO Matt Furlong led the earnings call for the first time.
I want to start by thanking our entire team for all of their hard work, given the pace at which the organization is changing. We are focused on positioning GameStop to scale while obsessing over competitive pricing, expansive selection, and fast shipping.
The earnings call only lasted 7 minutes, and executives didn't answer questions or provide any guidance. This comes as the firm has reported 3 consecutive years of losses amid a shift to online game buying. They want to pivot to e-commerce, but have provided few details.
So personally speaking, as someone in the games industry, I love what GameStop represents. In a fairly digital world, they're still anchored with some physical sensibilities.
James Deegan is the founder of video game development firm Mega Cat Studios. He is a fan of GameStop and says there are still many who want a physical version of a game. Approximately
40% of our games are in GameStop. Most games are sold digitally, but there's still such a clear and perfect fit for games that have the right level of production value and total gameplay content to get that physical counterpart that can go on game room, bedroom, and home shelves.
GameStop reports hardware, software, and collectible sales all experienced year-over-year growth. However, hardware sales fell 13% from the prior quarter, while software and collectibles stayed relatively the same. Don Ma, NTD News.
And General Motors is extending a shutdown at one Michigan plant. The plant produces its Chevy Bolt electric vehicle, which was recalled earlier because of battery fire risks. It's working with its battery supplier LG Chem to fix the issue, but the Michigan plant will still need to be shut down for another 2 weeks. GM says the extension is because of a battery pack shortage. Said it won't resume production or sales until it's sure the recall will address the fire risk. Had to be recalled twice. The recall could cost GM as much as $1.8 billion. It says it would seek reimbursement from its battery supplier, LG. Big hit. And Petco's CEO says the pet version of the baby boom post-World War II is here. What does that mean? The pet business will be booming now? NTD's Evelyn Lee spoke to some people in the industry.
Petco CEO Ron Coughlin said on Fox that pandemic pets are furry annuities in a spending boom.
They're going to need to be trained, they're going to need veterinary, they're going to need food for the next decade. So in some ways, it's like the baby boom that happened post-World War II, but this is just the pet version of it.
With the pandemic stress, a large number of Americans turned to pets to find comfort. And the pet boom led not only to shortages in shelters, but also at the vet, with wait times at clinics increasing nationwide. And Petco reported revenue that is almost 20% higher than a year ago.
The forecast for the pet industry, which was at about $118 billion in 2019, is to go to almost $300 billion in the next few years.
Lauren Greenwood, founder of the rescue shelter AskMrFrisky.org, says that that's not only because more people are adopting, it's also because pet owners are willing to spend more money on them.
You've got the baby boom generation that has a lot of disposable income. You know, maybe their kids are grown, they don't have grandkids yet. Pets are definitely becoming fur babies.
Taz Latifi is the owner of a pet store and runs the Petropolis podcast. She says the surge in pet owners has reflected in her business as well. New pet owners especially call to ask questions. She says the internet often provides wrong instructions.
It is sustainable and will be growing. These animals that were purchased or adopted are going to get older. They're going to require additional care because of the bad information.
Greenwood also thinks the pet business is growing sustainably. She says pets are becoming vital members of the family, and there are more and more services coming to the market to meet the demands of pet parents. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
And Chinese gaming shares skidded today after reports Beijing is further clamping down in the industry. It summoned the heads of some of the biggest firms in the industry too. NTD's Holly Richards reports.
In the latest blow to China's online gaming sector, the South China Morning Post reported on Thursday that Beijing had temporarily suspended approvals of new games. The publication later corrected its story to say China had temporarily slowed down rather than suspended approval for new online games. Shares in Chinese gaming giants Tencent and NetEase closed more than 8% and 11% lower, respectively. Beijing on Wednesday had summoned gaming firms, including Tencent and NetEase. China moved in August to ban under-18s from playing video games for more than 3 hours a week, saying this was needed to curb a growing addiction to what it once described as spiritual opium. China has conducted a broad crackdown on a wide range of sectors, including tech, education, and property, to strengthen government control after years of runaway growth. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And still to come this evening. Regulators want to know, how are we going to make sure commercial space flights don't collide with everyday flights? It says the space race heats up. And a team of drone enthusiasts in Indonesia used the aircraft for contactless delivery. They're getting medical supplies and food to residents under quarantine. That and more after this short break.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
What does it mean to devote your life to the truth? Does it mean investigating communist subversion here in America? Does it mean exposing the deadly fentanyl crisis in the Midwest? We're spending late nights and covering deep government corruption. does it mean persevering over 20 years, even after 4 masked men set one of our printing presses on fire last year? Because at a time when America's traditional values are under attack, it's the responsibility of righteous journalists to uphold truth and tradition.
Welcome back. The Transportation Department Inspector General says it's reviewing how officials prevent everyday flights and commercial space flights from sharing the same airspace and potentially colliding. Comes as multiple space flights have exploded since 2016, and shortly after the FAA grounded a prominent commercial spaceflight company, Virgin Galactic. During a flight in July, the company's supersonic spaceplane flew outside designated airspace for nearly 2 minutes. An aviation audit official says the FAA has gone from licensing 1 commercial space launch per month to now more than 1 a week. The agency coordinates nearly 43,000 flights daily, and it manages about 5,000 aircraft in the national airspace system at any given time. Tough job. And it seems it's drones to the rescue in Indonesia. Some drone enthusiasts are using their skills to help during the pandemic by providing a contactless delivery service to patients under quarantine. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
Armed with 5 drones, a team in Indonesia is delivering food and medicine to virus patients isolating at home. They started the service in July.
This mission is a matter of pride. It is not every day that we are needed and able to participate in a disaster management effort to tackle the spread of COVID-19.
One housewife has been self-isolating since she tested positive for the CCP virus in mid-August. She welcomed the innovative service.
I think the medicine received from a drone is more sterile. That's my first impression. And secondly, by delivering medicine with drones, that means the local government is paying attention to me, people who are suffering from COVID-19.
Her family of 4 is living in an area where up to 80% of residents are infected with the CCP virus. That's according to the local pandemic task force. The drone team is working with the local virus task force to deliver medicine at least 5 times a day. During the peak of the latest outbreak in July, they made up to 25 rounds of deliveries in one day.
My friends and I felt we are being called to contribute in an innovative way by using unmanned aircraft or drones. In the past, we had done a few trials to deliver goods with drones, and finally, we can use this tool in the work of COVID-19 prevention.
Authorities plan to expand the use of drones to nearby islands, and also provide deliveries to around 800 people in isolation on a nearby ship that's docked. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And that's the latest business updates for today, but you can still catch NTD Evening News with Stephanie Cox. That's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. For NTD Business, that's all for today. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.